There's a moment that happens in every narcissist's life when they think nobody's watching, when the phone is down, when the audience has left the room, when they're sitting alone in their car or lying in bed at night. And in that moment, something shifts. The carefully constructed persona cracks, the confident mask slips, and what emerges is something deeply unsettling, something that would horrify the people they claim to love. Because behind closed doors, narcissists are doing 6 things that reveal the truth about who they really are. And once you understand what's actually happening in their minds when they're alone, you'll never be confused by their behavior again. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, because here you'll discover powerful psychological truths that can change your life. The kind of insights that help you finally understand the people who've hurt you, and more importantly, help you reclaim your peace. We live in a world where narcissists have mastered the art of performance. Think about it. You've probably encountered someone who seems absolutely brilliant in public, charismatic, charming, in control. They laugh at the right moments, they say the right things, they mirror your interests perfectly, they seem like they have it all figured out, but you might also sense something slightly off. A coldness in their eyes when they think you're not looking, a switch that flips when they don't get the reaction they wanted, a darkness that lurks just beneath the surface. The truth is, narcissists are actors, and like all actors, they have a backstage. They have a place where the performance ends and reality begins. The public version of a narcissist is meticulously curated. Every gesture, every word, every emotion is calculated to produce a specific result. They need you to admire them. They need you to validate them. They need to feel superior to you. But maintaining that image is exhausting. It requires constant control, constant vigilance, constant feeding from the people around them. So what happens when that performance is no longer necessary? What happens when they're alone and there's nobody left to impress? When there's no audience, no one to manipulate, no one to control? That's when the mask comes off completely. And what you'll find underneath is far more disturbing than most people realize. If you've ever wondered what really goes on behind the mask, if you've felt confused by the sudden shifts in a narcissist's behavior, or if you've sensed that something doesn't quite add up, make sure to subscribe, because what you're about to hear will change everything. The first thing narcissists do when they're alone involves something you might not initially think is disturbing, but it reveals the core of their psychological instability. They replay conversations obsessively, for hours, sometimes for days, but not in the way a normal person might replay a conversation. When you have an awkward interaction with someone, you might think, "Oh, I wish I'd said that differently," and then you move on. You learn from it. You let it go. A narcissist doesn't work that way. When a narcissist is alone, they're replaying every single word of a conversation, especially ones where they felt even slightly challenged, questioned, or not completely in control. And here's what's happening in their mind. They're not reflecting. They're not learning. They're strategizing. They're thinking of all the things they should have said to dominate the conversation more completely. They're imagining how they could have controlled the narrative better. They're analyzing every word the other person said, looking for hidden meanings, looking for signs of disrespect or disloyalty. And most importantly, they're planning their next move to regain complete control. Imagine a narcissist has just had a conversation with a friend who gently disagreed with them about something. Maybe it was something small, a difference of opinion about a movie or a book, but in the narcissist's mind, that disagreement was an act of betrayal. As soon as they're alone, they're reliving that moment over and over. They're thinking about how they could have worded their argument more cleverly. They're imagining the friend's face if they'd said this or done that, and they're already planning how they'll subtly punish the friend or manipulate them back into agreement. This obsessive replaying serves a psychological purpose for them. It's how they maintain their sense of control and superiority even after an interaction has ended. It's the narcissist's way of never truly losing an argument, because in their private mental replay, they always win. This connects to the second deeply disturbing behavior that narcissists engage in when they're alone. They create elaborate fantasy scenarios where they are endlessly admired and superior. When a narcissist is alone, they're not just replaying reality. They're creating an alternate reality, a fantasy world where they are the undisputed star, where everyone recognizes their brilliance, where their every move is applauded, and where nobody ever challenges them or denies them anything. These aren't casual daydreams. These are obsessive, detailed fantasies that can consume hours of a narcissist's time. They might imagine themselves winning an award and giving a speech while an audience stands and applauds. They might imagine a former romantic partner or friend finally admitting how wrong they were to leave or reject them. They might imagine themselves becoming famous, wealthy, or incredibly successful, and watching everyone who ever doubted them realize their mistake. They might imagine detailed scenarios where someone they feel wronged by finally begs for their forgiveness or approval. The psychological function of these fantasies is critical to understand. In the real world, a narcissist's sense of superiority is constantly being challenged. People have their own opinions. People have their own successes. People are not fully controlled by the narcissist's narrative. This creates a constant state of fragile instability for them. But when they're alone, they can create a world where none of that is true, where they are completely superior, where everyone bows to them, where reality conforms to their fantasy. And for those hours spent alone, they get to feel the incredible rush of grandiosity without any resistance. The problem is, when they rejoin reality, that feeling fades. And the contrast between their fantasy world and the real world becomes so painful that they're driven to manipulate and control people even more intensely, just to try to recreate the feeling they had when they were alone. The third behavior reveals something even darker. When they're alone, narcissists experience a profound and terrifying emptiness. This is something that most people don't understand about narcissists. We often think of them as confidence personified, as people who are supremely sure of themselves. But the truth is far more tragic and far more disturbing. When a narcissist is alone, when there's no one to perform for, when there's no one to validate them or feed them attention, they feel an overwhelming sense of emptiness and meaninglessness. This emptiness is not like the occasional sadness or loneliness that most people feel. It's something deeper and more disturbing. It's a void, a complete absence of genuine connection to themselves, their emotions, or the world around them. Because narcissists lack genuine self-awareness and genuine emotional depth, their sense of self is entirely dependent on external validation. They don't have an internal sense of worth. They don't have genuine happiness that comes from authentic relationships or real accomplishments. All of their sense of self comes from what other people think of them. So when they're alone, cut off from that external source of validation, they're left with nothing. Pure emptiness. Some narcissists try to fill this emptiness with compulsive activities, scrolling through social media obsessively, constantly checking how many likes they got, constantly monitoring what people are saying about them online. Others might turn to substances or behaviors that provide some kind of immediate stimulation. Some might engage in frantic activity just to avoid sitting with the feeling. But the emptiness is always there, lurking beneath the surface. And that emptiness is terrifying to them because it reminds them that without the external validation, without the control over others, without the performance, there's nothing underneath. And that realization is something most narcissists will do almost anything to avoid. The fourth behavior is something many people who've been in relationships with narcissists recognize, but they don't always understand what's really happening. When narcissists are alone, they experience intense, simmering rage, not the explosive kind of rage that happens in front of others. That's usually carefully controlled and weaponized, but the private rage is different. It's a deep, burning resentment that comes from a very specific place. This rage emerges primarily when a narcissist has lost control over someone. Maybe it's someone who left them and went no contact. Maybe it's someone who finally stood up to them and refused to take their manipulation anymore. Maybe it's someone who shifted their loyalty to someone else. Or maybe it's someone who simply refused to play the role the narcissist assigned to them. When a narcissist is alone and they think about this person who got away, who escaped their control, the rage builds. It's not sadness about losing a relationship. It's not even anger about being rejected. It's a specific kind of fury that comes from having their power stripped away. You can almost imagine the narcissist alone in their room, and their mind shifts to this person. And suddenly they're thinking about everything this person did wrong, every way they betrayed them, every lie they told, every way they were ungrateful. And the rage builds and builds until it's almost consuming. They might punch a pillow, they might smash something, they might pace around their home seething, and the thoughts become darker and darker. They fantasize about revenge. They imagine scenarios where this person finally realizes what they lost. They think about ways to punish them or make them hurt. This rage is particularly dangerous because when the narcissist has no direct access to their target, no way to immediately harm them, they begin planning. They start plotting their revenge. And that's where we encounter the fifth behavior, which is one of the most unsettling ones. When narcissists are alone, they monitor and stalk the people they've lost control over. In the modern age, this often happens through social media, which provides a perfect vehicle for this behavior. The narcissist might compulsively check their ex-partner's Instagram, analyzing every photo, reading every comment, trying to figure out who they're with, whether they're happy, whether they've moved on. They might create fake accounts to follow someone or get information about them. They might monitor their location through shared apps. They might ask mutual friends for updates about what they're doing. The psychological motivation here is extremely important to understand. It's not actually about remaining connected to the person. It's about control. The narcissist needs to know what this person is doing because knowledge is power. If they can track where this person is, what they're doing, who they're with, and whether they're happy, then they haven't truly lost control. They're still pulling the strings, even if invisibly. They still have access to information that allows them to monitor and influence the situation. But there's something even more disturbing happening during these stalking sessions. The narcissist is documenting. They're taking screenshots. They're building a case against this person in their mind. They're gathering evidence that can be used against them later. Evidence that can be weaponized in a custody battle, used to destroy their reputation, or simply held onto as ammunition for future emotional or even physical attacks. When a narcissist is alone, obsessively checking social media, they're not pining for their ex. They're not missing them. They're gathering intelligence. They're fueling their rage. And they're planning their next move. The sixth and final behavior that narcissists engage in when they're alone involves a profound and disturbing psychological split. They oscillate violently between grandiosity and deep, crushing insecurity. One moment, the narcissist is alone, and they're lost in fantasy, imagining themselves as superior, brilliant, destined for greatness. They're the victim of others' jealousy. They're misunderstood. They're actually incredible, and the world just hasn't recognized it yet. But then something happens. A thought intrudes. A memory of someone who rejected them. A moment where someone saw through their mask. A realization that they're not actually winning at everything they claim to win at. And suddenly, the grandiosity collapses, and what emerges is the opposite extreme. Deep, profound insecurity, self-doubt, a crushing sense that maybe they're not special, maybe they're not superior, maybe they're actually inferior, maybe they're actually failing, maybe they're actually pathetic. And because narcissists can't tolerate this feeling of insecurity, can't tolerate the thought that they might be less than exceptional, they go back into grandiosity. It's like a seesaw. They swing from one extreme to the other, sometimes multiple times within an hour. When a narcissist is alone with their thoughts, this cycle can be maddening and exhausting. And what this reveals is that their confidence is entirely fragile. It's not rooted in genuine self-esteem or real accomplishments. It depends entirely on external validation and control. If you want to understand these patterns and protect your peace, if you want to stop being confused by the narcissist's behavior and stop blaming yourself for their cruelty, subscribe to the channel. Because understanding what's really happening, understanding that their behavior isn't about you, understanding that their anger and control comes from their own internal fragility, that's when you can finally set yourself free. Think about the sheer contrast here. In public, the narcissist appears confident, charming, and in control. But in private, they're obsessing, fantasizing, raging, stalking, monitoring, and swinging wildly between grandiosity and collapse. The person you see in the world is a complete fabrication. The real narcissist, the private one, is far more disturbed, far more unstable, and far more empty than anyone would guess. What's particularly cruel about this is that narcissists often target people who are empathetic, kind, and trusting. They target people who want to see the best in others. And they exploit that goodness by showing the world their public persona while privately engaging in behaviors that are designed to control, manipulate, and sometimes even destroy. The people closest to a narcissist often catch glimpses of the private reality. They see the rage, they witness the obsession, they notice the instability, but they're also trained through manipulation to doubt their own perceptions. They're told they're overreacting, they're told they're too sensitive, they're told they're imagining things. And this creates a deeply confusing psychological experience for the people involved with them. Here's the realization that changes everything. The narcissist's confidence is not real. Their superiority is not real. Their sense of self is not real. It's all a performance that exists only because they're constantly forcing reality to conform to their fantasy through manipulation and control. And the moment you understand this, the moment you truly grasp that their behavior has nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with their desperate need to maintain a fragile illusion, you can finally let go of the guilt. You can finally stop blaming yourself. You can finally understand that no matter what you did, it would never be enough, because their emptiness can't be filled by you. Their rage can't be soothed by your compliance. Their insecurity can't be healed by your devotion, because these aren't problems you created. These are problems that exist at the core of who they are. The people who escape narcissists often describe a moment where everything clicks into place, where they suddenly understand that they were never dealing with a confident, superior person. They were dealing with someone deeply wounded, deeply empty, and deeply desperate. And that understanding is liberating, because once you see the narcissist for who they really are, not as superior but as profoundly inferior in their ability to experience genuine human connection, their power over you evaporates. When you're alone tonight and you think about the narcissist in your life, I want you to remember what you've just learned. Remember that when they're alone, they're not basking in their superiority. They're obsessing, they're fantasizing, they're experiencing emptiness that's almost unbearable. They're raging, they're stalking, they're swinging between extremes. Remember that their need to control you, their need to manipulate you, their need to constantly put you down, none of it comes from a place of genuine confidence. It comes from a place of desperation. It comes from a person who is terrified that the world will discover they're not who they claim to be. And here's what that means for you. It means you don't have to change who you are to please them. It means you don't have to accept their criticism as truth. It means you don't have to comply with their control. It means you don't have to stay, because they are not superior to you. They are not better than you. They are simply broken in a very specific way that makes them dangerous to anyone foolish enough to love them. The path forward is clarity. It's seeing them for who they really are, not as the powerful figure they pretend to be, but as the small, frightened, empty person they are when nobody's watching. And that clarity will set you free. That clarity will give you your peace back. That clarity will help you rebuild the sense of self that they've been systematically destroying. If you want clarity, self-respect, and emotional freedom in your life, if you're ready to stop being confused and start being healed, subscribe now to the channel. And more than that, share this video with someone who needs to hear this. Because someone in your life right now might be sitting alone, confused, and guilt-ridden, wondering what they did wrong to deserve the behavior of a narcissist. And your sharing this with them might be the moment they finally understand the truth. That's the power of knowledge. That's the power of seeing reality for what it is. Subscribe, and let's build a community of people who refuse to be manipulated anymore. Let's build a community of people who understand the truth and who are committed to their own freedom. Thank you for watching.